Lyria had never felt like she belonged. In the pack of wolves she was born into, she was weak, frail, and completely ordinary in every way. As the youngest daughter of a respected family, her parents had hopes that she would grow into her role, but she never did. As she grew older, it became evident that her Omega status was a curse. Her scent was faint, barely detectable compared to the powerful alphas around her. Her presence was barely noticed, and those who did see her treated her with indifference. Her parents were cold and dismissive. They were waiting for an opportunity to rid themselves of the burden that Lyria had become. One fateful evening when Lyria was 16, her parents gathered her and informed her that they had no future plans for her. They would be auctioning her off at the next gathering, to any alpha willing to take her in. "You are weak, Lyria," her father said, his words like a dagger. "You are a liability to this family. We need to rid ourselves of that weakness." Her mother added in a quiet, harsh voice, "An Omega like you won't survive in this world without an Alpha to protect you, but we're done. We can't waste resources on you anymore." Lyria stood frozen, the crushing weight of rejection suffocating her. Her world came crashing down as her own family turned their backs on her, selling her to the highest bidder. Chapter 2: The Auction. The night of the auction arrived, a celebration where Omegas like Lyria were paraded in front of a crowd of Alphas. The scene was nothing short of dehumanizing. Each Omega was assessed for their potential as a mate or servant. For Lyria, it was the beginning of her humiliation, her future reduced to an object to be bartered. As she was led to the front, her delicate frame trembling, she could hear the murmurs of the crowd. Whispers of her frailty, her unimpressive scent, and her failure to catch the attention of any of the alphas who had already seen her. Lyria's heart sank. She was nothing. Her uncles, who had never cared for her, were the ones auctioning her. Their greed was unmistakable. They were only interested in the money they could make off her, and the alpha who would take her would be one who saw her as little more than a tool to use. "How much?" one of her uncles called out to the crowd, his voice slick with anticipation. Chapter 3: The Alpha King's Arrival. The auction was beginning to drag on, and Lyria was about to be sold to another wealthy alpha who would keep her as a servant when suddenly, the atmosphere changed. A shiver ran through the crowd as a tall, imposing figure stepped into the room. It was him, the Alpha King. King Rhaegar was known across the lands for his strength, his wisdom, and his untouchable status. Rumors had swirled for years about his search for his mate. The moment he entered the room, the whispers died, replaced by a palpable sense of awe and fear. The king had always been elusive, only attending gatherings like this when something of great importance called to him. His eyes met Lyria's, and for the first time in her life someone saw her. Really saw her. The moment their eyes locked, everything in the room disappeared. His scent, rich and intoxicating, filled the air and Lyria's heart stuttered. It was as though the world itself had aligned, pulling them together in an undeniable pull. He approached her, his gaze unwavering. Without a word, Rhaegar reached for her chin, lifting her face to meet his. The bond was instant. His wolf recognized her, his mate, and he was not about to let her slip away. "I'll take her," the king declared, his voice deep and commanding. The auctioneer stammered, surprised by the king's sudden intervention. "But she's mine," Rhaegar interrupted. "And I'll pay any price." Chapter 4: Claiming his mate. After the transaction was completed, Lyria was whisked away from the auction hall, her life completely changed in the span of a few minutes. She sat silently in the royal carriage, trying to wrap her mind around what had just happened. The Alpha King had claimed her as his mate, as though she were the most precious thing in the world. But why? She was nothing special. She was weak. But Rhaegar never saw her as weak. He saw her as the missing piece of his soul, the Omega he had been searching for all his life. He knew deep down that she was the one. The woman his wolf had called for since his birth. Chapter 5: Betrayal from Family. Lyria soon learned that her uncles had planned to sell her not just to the highest bidder but to a cruel alpha who would use her and discard her. Their plan had been foiled by Rhaegar, but that didn't stop their betrayal from stinging deeply. "I didn't want this," Lyria whispered, her voice trembling as she sat before Rhaegar in the royal palace. "I never wanted to be sold. I just wanted to belong." Rhaegar reached out, taking her hand gently in his. "You do belong. You belong to me now, and I will protect you, cherish you, and never let anyone hurt you again." No one will ever control you like that again. But just as they were starting to settle into their new life together, Lyria's uncles came to claim what they saw as their due. They tried to force their way into the palace, demanding money and a position in the royal court for their treachery. The king, however, was unyielding. His strength and authority became clear as he confronted them, the weight of his presence crushing their arrogance. He banished them from the kingdom, making it clear that they would never have power or influence over Lyria again. Chapter 6. Acceptance and Love. The days following the betrayal were hard for Lyria, but Rhaegar was there for her every step of the way. He showed her how to embrace her worth, how to accept her place at his side as his true mate. The bond between them deepened with each passing day. Rhaegar taught her the ways of the pack, how to navigate the royal court, and most importantly, how to embrace her strength, not in the way others expected but in her own quiet, powerful way. As the seasons changed, so did Lyria. She grew stronger, her scent more potent, her presence more commanding. The people who once dismissed her began to see her for what she truly was, a queen in her own right with the Alpha King by her side. And as the years passed, their bond only grew stronger. Their love, tested by rejection and betrayal, became a force that could not be broken. Rhaegar knew that he had found his true mate, and Lyria, for the first time in her life, truly felt like she belonged. Chapter 7. Growing Together. The days turned into weeks, and Lyria found herself in a world far beyond what she had ever imagined. Under Rhaegar's protection, she was no longer the fragile, discarded Omega she had been in her family's eyes. She was learning to stand tall, to walk with the pride of someone chosen, not just by any alpha but by the Alpha King himself. Rhaegar never forced her into anything. He allowed her to grow at her own pace. His presence was constant but not suffocating. She was learning to trust, to rely on him not just as a king but as a mate. The palace that once felt like an overwhelming prison now felt like a sanctuary, a place where she was safe. One evening, as they sat in the gardens beneath the stars, Rhaegar shared a piece of his heart with her. "You were always meant to be by my side, Lyria," he said, his voice low and sincere. "I have waited my entire life for you. I didn't know it was you until I saw you at the auction. It was like a pull, a connection I could not deny." Lyria's eyes widened. You knew that I was your mate before you bought me?" Rhaegar nodded, a gentle smile playing on his lips. "I didn't just buy you. I claimed you. You are the one my wolf has been searching for. The moment I laid eyes on you, I knew you were mine, and no one, nothing, could take you from me." Lyria's heart fluttered in her chest. Her insecurities had been so overwhelming, and yet Rhaegar had never once faltered in his belief in her. She had feared being weak forever, but in his eyes she was everything. Chapter 8. The Challenges of Being an Alpha's Mate. Though Lyria was no longer the weak Omega she once thought herself to be, being the mate of an Alpha King came with its own challenges. There were expectations, political pressures, and enemies who sought to undermine their bond. The royal court, once cold and indifferent, now watched her every move, testing her strength and her worth. One day, during a grand feast in the royal halls, an elder wolf, one of Rhaegar's closest advisors, approached her with a challenge. "You are not yet proven," the elder said, his tone condescending. "Being the mate of the king is not enough. You must show that you are worthy of the crown you will one day wear." Lyria's heart sank. She had never wanted power or control, but now her position as the queen was in question. Rhaegar immediately stood, his gaze darkening. "No one will question my mate. She has already proven herself to me." But Lyria, who had spent her life learning not to let others see her weakness, rose to the challenge. She stepped forward and faced the elder, her voice steady but firm. "If you would have me prove my worth," she said, "I will. But know this, I do not need to wear a crown to rule by my mate's side. His heart is mine, and that is all that matters." The room fell silent. For a moment, Lyria thought she might have overstepped, but then the elder nodded, a small glimmer of respect in his eyes. "You may be right," he said, turning away. It was a victory not just for Lyria, but for her and Rhaegar's relationship as a whole. They weren't just an alpha and an omega. They were partners, equal in their love, their struggles, and their triumphs. Chapter 9. The Bond Strengthens. Time passed, and with every passing day, Lyria felt the bond between herself and Rhaegar growing stronger. She was learning more about her own power, her strength as a mate, as an Omega who had once been considered weak but now was an integral part of the Alpha King's world. Rhaegar too had changed. He had always been the ruler, but with Lyria by his side he had learned to listen more, to lean into her wisdom and intuition. They made decisions together, united in their love and the vision they shared for the future of their kingdom. There were moments of pure bliss, like when Rhaegar held her close in the quiet of their chambers after a long day, or when they walked together through the palace gardens, hand in hand, a soft breeze lifting her hair. Lyria had never felt more alive, more cherished. But their journey wasn't without challenges. One night, word came of a rogue pack threatening their borders, and Rhaegar's leadership was put to the test once again. It was a dangerous moment, but Lyria stood by his side as he prepared for battle, offering him her strength and support. "I don't need you to fight," Rhaegar said, brushing a lock of her hair from her face. "But your presence, your belief in me, it strengthens me more than you know." She kissed him gently, her lips a promise. "I will always stand by you, Rhaegar. I am not just your mate, I am your queen." Chapter 10. The Rogue Pack and Final Victory. The Rogue Pack had been a threat for some time, but it was during this critical moment that Rhaegar and Lyria's true strength was tested. The battle was fierce, with warriors from across the kingdom joining Rhaegar to defend their land. Lyria, although not a fighter, stood at his side, offering her support in other ways, organizing the defenses, tending to the wounded, and standing as a beacon of hope for their people. In the midst of the chaos, Lyria's sense of purpose became clear. She wasn't just the Alpha King's mate. She was his equal, his partner, and the heart of their kingdom. When the battle was finally won and the rogue pack was driven off, it was a testament not just to Rhaegar's strength, but to the bond between them. Together they had led their people to victory. As the sun rose the next morning, Lyria stood beside Rhaegar, watching the first light of dawn break across their kingdom. She was no longer the timid Omega who had been discarded by her family. She was the queen, the Alpha's mate, the heart of their kingdom. "I never thought I could have this," Lyria whispered, her hand in Rhaegar's. "I never thought I could be loved like this." Rhaegar smiled, his eyes filled with affection and pride. "You were always meant to be loved, Lyria. By me. By the kingdom. You are everything to me." And as they stood together, the future stretched out before them, uncertain, but filled with the promise of a love that had overcome everything. Chapter 11. The Secrets of the Past. The peace that had settled over the kingdom was still fragile. Though Rhaegar and Lyria had secured their place in the royal court, whispers of dark secrets still clung to the edges of their world. During a night of feasting, an unexpected guest arrived. A former ally of Rhaegar's, a woman known only as Selene. Her eyes, dark with unspoken truths, met Lyria's with a knowing gaze. "Your king has a past that you don't yet understand," Selene said quietly as the two women stood away from the revelry. "Before he was king, he was forced to make choices. Choices that now threaten everything he holds dear." Lyria's pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" Selene glanced over her shoulder, ensuring no one could overhear them. "There are enemies who are still loyal to Rhaegar's old adversaries. They have not forgotten his rise to power, and they will not stop until they tear down everything he's built, including you." Lyria's heart raced, her loyalty to Rhaegar deepening with every word. But the idea that enemies from the past could threaten their love and their kingdom filled her with dread. Rhaegar found them shortly after, his expression hard, but with a flicker of concern. "What's going on?" he demanded, his eyes narrowing as they shifted between the two women. "Selene has shared troubling news," Lyria answered. "It seems there are still people who wish to bring you down." Rhaegar's jaw clenched. "I know. But I will deal with them in my own way. You need not worry, my queen." Lyria took his hand, her heart swelling with love. "I'll always worry, Rhaegar. But we will face this together." Chapter 12. A Growing Threat. Despite Rhaegar's assurances, the danger loomed over them like a dark cloud. In the days that followed, reports of covert attacks against the kingdom's borders began to increase. Rogue factions were attacking villages near the eastern mountain range, threatening trade routes and sending fear into the hearts of the people. Rhaegar's military forces were stretched thin as he sought to quash the growing unrest. Yet Lyria couldn't shake the feeling that something more sinister was at play. It wasn't just random attacks. It felt like someone was orchestrating these events from the shadows, watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I'm not sure this is just about territory, Lyria confided one evening as they sat in the royal library. There's something personal about these attacks. Rhaegar's eyes softened as he gazed at her. You are more perceptive than you realize, Lyria. I fear the enemies I left behind all those years ago have found new allies. And they're not just after you, Lyria added. They're after everything we've built together. Rhaegar stood, walking over to the grand window that overlooked the kingdom. The evening sun cast a warm glow on the lands. Then we will fight together. There is nothing I won't do to protect you. To protect our people. Lyria smiled softly, her heart swelling with pride. We will fight together, Rhaegar. Chapter 13, A King's Burden. The preparations for war were grueling, but Rhaegar was resolute. He and Lyria spent countless hours in strategy meetings, preparing their forces. Rhaegar's leadership was unquestioned by his warriors, but Lyria noticed the strain on his face. There was a heaviness to him, a burden that seemed to grow with each passing day. One evening, as they stood together on the balcony of their palace, Lyria placed a hand on his arm. Rhaegar, you don't have to carry this weight alone. Let me help you. He turned, his eyes filled with emotion. I have to do this, Lyria. I've always had to carry the weight of this kingdom alone. I never wanted to pull you into this world of violence and conflict. Lyria shook her head. I am already in this world, Rhaegar. And I choose to be by your side no matter what happens. Rhaegar kissed her forehead, a tender moment of quiet amidst the chaos surrounding them. I don't know what I would do without you. Chapter 14, The Battle of the East. The day arrived when Rhaegar was forced to lead his forces into the eastern mountains to confront the rogue factions once and for all. Lyria, though not a fighter, refused to stay behind. She rode at Rhaegar's side, her heart pounding in her chest as they approached the enemy stronghold. The battle was fierce, more intense than either of them could have imagined. Lyria's presence was a beacon for the warriors as she helped rally the troops, her unwavering faith in Rhaegar's leadership inspiring them to fight with renewed strength. As the battle raged on, Lyria found herself face to face with one of the leaders of the rogue faction, a powerful wolf who seemed to recognize her immediately. His dark eyes were filled with contempt as he sneered at her. You think you can stand against me, little Omega? He growled. Lyria's blood ran cold, but she stood her ground. I'm not just an Omega. I am the Alpha King's mate, and I will fight to protect everything we have built. The rogue Alpha lunged at her, but before he could strike, Rhaegar intervened, his strength and fury overwhelming the enemy. With one swift movement he took down the rogue Alpha, ending the battle. As the dust settled, Rhaegar turned to Lyria, his eyes filled with admiration. You are stronger than you know. Chapter 15, Rebuilding the Kingdom. The battle was won, but the kingdom was left in ruins. Villages had been destroyed, families displaced, and the wounds of war ran deep. It was up to Rhaegar and Lyria to rebuild, not just the physical structures of their kingdom, but the spirit of their people. Together they worked tirelessly. Lyria organized aid for the wounded, coordinated efforts to rebuild the damaged villages, and ensured that the needs of the people were met. Her heart swelled with pride as she saw the kingdom come together, the bonds of loyalty to their king and queen growing stronger. I never imagined this life, Lyria said one evening as she and Rhaegar stood together, looking out over the flourishing fields that now dotted the once war-torn land. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. Rhaegar placed his hand on her shoulder, his voice soft but full of conviction. This is our kingdom, Lyria. And with you by my side, we will make it stronger than ever before. Chapter 16, The Prophecy. As the kingdom settled into a new era of peace, an old prophecy came to light. An ancient seer had foretold that the Alpha King would one day face a great challenge, one that would test not just his strength but the bond between him and his mate. Lyria, concerned, sought out the royal historian, an elder wolf who had studied the prophecy for years. It speaks of a darkness that will come to challenge the throne, the historian said, his voice grave. And it is said that only the bond between the Alpha King and his true mate will protect the kingdom from this darkness. Lyria's heart skipped a beat. She had always known that their love was powerful, but hearing the prophecy gave it a sense of weight, of inevitability. What does it mean for us? She asked. It means, the historian said, that the love you share with Rhaegar is the key. You must never let it falter, for the strength of your bond will be tested in ways you cannot yet understand. Chapter 17. Shadows of the Past. In the months that followed, the kingdom flourished, but a sense of unease still lingered. Strange occurrences began to plague the land. Wild storms that destroyed crops, shadows moving through the forests, whispers in the wind that spoke of impending doom. Rhaegar, though determined to remain calm for Lyria and their people, could sense that something was amiss. The prophecy was coming to life. One night, as Lyria slept beside him, Rhaegar stood at the window, gazing out over the kingdom. He could feel the darkness approaching, and he knew that his greatest battle was yet to come. Chapter 18. A Call to Arms. The attacks began again, this time more organized, more vicious. The rogue factions were no longer just about power, they were about destruction. And they seemed to know exactly where to strike. Rhaegar knew it was time to prepare for the final battle. He called his army to arms, gathering allies from neighboring kingdoms, but he also knew that Lyria's role in this battle was more vital than ever. "You are my queen, Lyria. You are the one who will hold the line when I am away," he said, his voice full of resolve. Lyria nodded, her heart full of determination. "We will fight together, Rhaegar. We will stand as one no matter the odds." Chapter 19. The Final War. The battle raged for days, an unrelenting storm of violence and bloodshed. Yet through it all, Lyria and Rhaegar stood firm, their bond guiding them. The prophecy was becoming true. The darkness had come, and only their love could hold it back. As they fought side by side, they realized that the greatest weapon they had wasn't their strength or their armies. It was their unwavering trust and love for one another. Together they would face anything. Chapter 20. The Dawn of a New Era. When the final battle ended, the kingdom was saved. The rogue factions were defeated, their leaders brought to justice, and the land was finally at peace. Rhaegar and Lyria stood together, victorious but exhausted. The dawn of a new era had arrived. Their love had proven stronger than anything that had tried to tear them apart. And as they looked out over their kingdoms side by side, they knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, united forever. Epilogue. A forever kind of love. Years passed and the kingdom flourished under their rule. Lyria had embraced her role as queen, working alongside Rhaegar to bring prosperity and peace to their people. The bond between them, forged through hardship and growth, had only deepened. They had faced their doubts, their enemies, and the ghosts of their pasts, but in the end, it was their love that triumphed. No longer an Omega abandoned by her family, Lyria was a queen loved by her king. And with him by her side, she knew there was nothing they could not face, together.